Hey folks, after I left class, I chatted with some students and we looked at projects and some different ideas. And I think you're coming along in the concept of what a digital humanities project could be and how you're supposed to do the projects this semester. The practical project seems to make a little bit more sense. You're trying out some of the tools and playing with them and producing a blog post of your results. This DH critique, the Digital Humanities Research Project critique, is a little bit of a puzzler still. And professors have sort of two ways that they can respond. I guess three ways that they can respond when students are struggling. One, they can blame the students. And of course, lots of profs do that. Two, they can work with each individual to ensure that they're caught up with the class. But the third one is when I have a sense that the class itself is struggling, that there's more than one question that's open, or that if I haven't clearly specified an assignment in the syllabus or something, what I do is do my best to make up the difference. And so what will follow this video is a series of vignettes. I'm going to do a number of the 3-minute expert presentations. The thing is, I don't have time to do a whole bunch of work and create the blog post and then the 3-minute talk for all of these research projects. But I wanted to give you some examples. And so what follows is me giving a shorter version, 2 minutes or so, of a number of different kinds of digital humanities projects, so you can see the kinds of thing that you'll be presenting when you do the 3-minute expert presentation. And behind that, I think the blog post will follow just fine. I hope you can enjoy these and know that you should make yours more scripted. Mine is going to be off the cuff and done swiftly. And the whole goal of mine is so that you can see what a digital humanities critique looks like, so that you can confidently complete one over the next week and present on February 4th and just be confident. I mean, presenting is hard and doing school is hard, so, you know, let's just make it a little easier. Phil, I want to say before you watch those little vignettes, if there's ever a sense in one of my classes that you feel like something's unfair, I want to know about that. It might be unfair. It might be unreasonable. You might not be trying hard enough. I may not be communicating clearly. There's more than one reason for these things, but I don't want students to feel like they're set aside or feel like you're, in a sense, put out of possibility for what this class could be because I'm not doing my best as a prof. I always want to do my best, and so I hope I can make these links for you. Cheers. Hello, my name is Michel, and I want to talk about this digital humanities project by Barb Rousseau, who is a Master's of Arts Island Studies student at the University of Prince Edward Island. And she lives in the area of St. Peter's Harbour, and so she did a history, an environmental history of the Disappearing Harbour, navigating environmental history of St. Peter's Harbour, Prince Edward Island, for Niche, which is a blog for a environmental group. So, where's the harbour? What this paper does is it talks about how there is a harbor that disappears in history. And there's this very cool overlay of photos that we can see in St. Peter's Bay, Prince Edward Island, where there's land at different spots, but over time there's a dramatic difference of the land here, and then that's all gone in the old one. And so as a result of that, the maps change, and she has some cool historical maps and some neat different artifacts from the past. But as the maps change, they have to learn how to do different things technologically, and one of those is the lighthouse, and they actually had to create 2 lighthouses, one that moved and made a line for the other one depending about where the land was, so that ships wouldn't get stuck in and out of the harbor. And you can see here the boats, she says in this picture, the boats are moving in or out. It looks like in after fishing, but there was at one time a breakwater over here, and it's important to see the changes there, and eventually they stopped trying to do breakwaters and all kinds of things. Well, the strengths of this project, it shows that it's really kind of silly for us to pretend that we can just change the ocean and the shores and nothing will make a difference. The benefit of it is that it was a really good read, and she writes well, and it was very short. It didn't show us how to do the mapping from our GIS, and it's connected to a larger GeoReach Atlantic Canadian project. The disadvantage might be there was one error that she had to write about later to fix, but I think it is very cool to see the differences, and I especially like this picture where we can go back and forth so that we can see the stark difference, because I'm somebody who just really learns best by knowing like visually how things work, and so I can really see how things don't change much over on the right in the east, but they change a lot here on the west, and like everything changes, and so that makes a difference for land and sea and fishing and farming and forestry and everything else. Thank you. Hi, I'm Alex, and I am doing my project on that thing that we talked about in class, the GeoReach experience, that mapping that we looked a little bit in class. And I wanted to look at a blog post that the team wrote, Dr. Josh MacFadyen and Margot something else MacFadyen, Maddison-MacFadyen, they're not related, it says. Energy on the Joseph Jr. and Benjamin Robinson farms, and there's the details of it. And what I like about this is they take archives, so they've got pictures here, and it's kind of like the one that Michel did, but then they take and they put the maps and they show like where the different atlas layers are, and they show the topography so you can tell how steep things are and where water is, and they show these maps and the development of the houses on the maps. And then there's lots of old maps. They also have an interactive map here so you can see what's going on today. But what they actually do is they look at old diaries, and they look at the expense accounts and census data and a whole bunch of things, and they find out how much crops that they produced. So for example, here it's potatoes was only this amount in this great big graph here, and then pasture land is like very small. There's very little pasture land, so I don't know where they're pasturing their pea. And then here we have hay, and then here we have woodland and all the other crops. And so what they do with that is they calculate that into like energy. So basically how much gas goes in your car to go 100 kilometers. So they do that with animals and with the household, and then they show the kinds of energy flow. Now, the disadvantage for me is that I didn't really understand how this fits into the whole project. Like, I liked that there was kind of all of this thing, and that there's a category called cheese and horses and sheep and swine, and I love the different things that it shows. I don't know what it means, except it's showing that it was more efficient and less wasteful to run a farm, even back then when it was horses, rather than today with the more efficient farms. It's a really cool project, and I think it'll take a lot of time to really get into it, and there's a really complex spreadsheet behind it, and I don't even know how to do that, but it's in some of the academic literature. Hi, I'm Jewel. I love reading fantasy books and especially watching the films, and I love maths, and I am taking the actuarial science program because my parents are making me, but I would really like to just do math games and things, and I found a project that brings those both together. This is the Intrepid Mathematician, and he is part of a group of people that have produced this paper
Mining and Modeling Character Networks, and you can find that just through linking there. And I did read the paper and I looked at this project, and what they do is they create basically social networks of the various kinds of relationships in this case, the Lord of the Rings. Now that's just a picture of it. Here's an example of one from the characters of Twilight, which I thought the third film wasn't. Anyway, that's not the point. And so it shows those kind of connections between Edward and then all the other people. Here's The Stand, which I watched the series, and so I kind of get. But then here's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, so just one of the Harry Potter books, and all the connections between them. And so what this does is it uses a spreadsheet to make all of the times that there's a connection between any of the characters. Lots between Harry, Ron, and Hermione, but there's some between, Harry and Seamus Finnegan or Dean. And there's some between Hermione and Crabbe rather than all the rest, and so on. And it shows the connection, as it does with the colors. It shows the closer connection between these different characters. Now, what is really interesting about this is that they show that it has the same kind of connection that, say, a protein interaction network would, so that we would get in biochemics. What they did was they applied AI to some of those more traditional social mapping networks. And so here in The Lord of the Rings, by applying AI, they were able to round off some of the edges, is what I think. The key disappointment with this project is that it shows the data, but then it says, okay, we discovered a simple model for structure of social networks in novels and movies, dun, 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 and there it is. And I've checked all the different browsers and the picture's just not there. And there's no picture for it in the paper itself. So when you go through the paper, there's no picture there. What I've learned is that I don't really understand how the spreadsheet works, but I really appreciate them doing this, and this is something that I'm going to learn on my own time and watch The Goblet of Fire or read the book. Hey, I'm Chalker, and my friend Carter took this course last year, and he made this really interesting map of a part of Spring Park in Charlottetown, where it had sliding pictures and stuff, and it had Brenton's house in it. So I thought it was too creepy to present on Brenton's house for this class, and so instead I looked at his teacher's thing. This is Dr. MacFadyen and then Barb Rousseau, a student, and they worked together on this Muscle, Mass, and Motor, the Transportation History of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And it would really take you a long time to read and play with all the things, but basically it shows the different, it has an interactive map, which I tried setting this up, which shows different places where there are bike repair shops or engine repair shops or where cars are developed and all kinds of things like that. What I loved was this sliding picture, and I don't think I'm the only one in class loves the sliding pictures that takes that data and see it's represented by different kinds of pictures, and then compares it to today's data or today's mapping. Or maybe I'm supposed to say data. Is data, you say data, it's call the whole thing off. And then, but my favorite part is where I know I said the other was my favorite part, but what I really like is them taking the story from the Mi'kmaq people, the shipping story, and then going through kind of how the rivers and the harbors developed. And I didn't know, but see all these blue dots here down where the wharfs are? Those are all places where extra land was added to extend the amount of land that we have to build down there. And so the Charlottetown Harbor actually looked quite a lot different at the past. And here it shows them making a wharf, and basically they're pushing the land. See all those old wharfs? They're pushing the land out into the sea. And it seems to have worked. Nothing's fallen in. But there were ferries at one time, and at one time the train had to get on a ferry just to cross. There wasn't a Hillsborough Bridge, and then so on. And then it shows horses and all kinds of things. It got onto cars, and I didn't really care for that much. But I did like the section on the trains and bicycles, and there's just so much to explore. Is there? I don't know if there's a disadvantage to this. I think I had some trouble understanding at first what the different dots do, and so you actually have to read the thing. That's not a disadvantage, that's just part of it. And there's just so many neat kind of old things. This is just like a cool place for old things. And when you read my blog, you don't have to, you're not assigned it, but like if you'd like to read my blog, well, Brenton has to read it because he has to mark it. But I tried doing a sliding picture of my own house and it didn't work and it totally failed. But Brenton said that's okay because the next practical project down the road, I can give those sorts of things a try again. Bye-bye. So I picked this project because I found this really cool tie in my dad's closet. He's really old, and it's an upside down tie of a character from VeggieTales, and he's wearing a tie, and I thought that was kind of meta. But he also sings a song in one of the videos on TV where he says little guys can do big things too. And so I was really interested in little and big and things like that. So I searched that for Digital Humanities Project, and I found this guy's site, Brenton Dickieson or something. And he does a brief study of small and little in J.R. Tolkien's book, The Hobbit. And I thought the charts were really pretty. What he does is he takes this scholar's work, their name is Sparrow Alden, and they look at little and like the different kinds of like how often it occurs. So the number is the chapter and then the line, and they've gone through all through the Hobbit and shows like where little, and then there's another page, there's small and there's big and so on. And this Pilgrim in Narnia guy took that and he broke up into chapters, and then he charted these things to show where there's an emphasis on little, small, smaller, and things like that. And then out of that, what he was trying to do overall somewhere else in a talk was to talk, it's more than just the little guys can do big things too, like this. And I think that's part of the message. It's not just that it's important that the hobbits were small in and that the heroes aren't very important in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but it's that Sauron, who's the bad guy who wants the Ring of Power, he could never imagine giving up the power. And so the only way to defeat him is by destroying the ring that has the power. And he would never think of doing that. And so big heroes can't do that job because they want to wield the power, but small characters and small heroes can do it because they want to create peace rather than have power. And there's a line from Gandalf in the movie, I think, but also in the book, where he says, the coming of the hobbits will be like small stones that begin an avalanche. And I really like the emphasis on small things. And I think that really gets The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings and shows how like power is kind of upside down in those worlds. So even though this was too brief and he really should update it, and they didn't show the whole lecture, which was kind of disappointing, only part of it, I think it's a good example of something that I would like to do in my reading. All right, bye, Raven. That's like me. Let's see the tie. I love the Lord of the Rings, and I wanted to my name is Ërnst, and I wanted to talk about, there was this guy, so I did a TED Talk on Lord of the Rings and maps, and I just love maps and things like that. And so I went to his website, the LOTR, that's Lord of the Rings Project, and there's just too much to talk about. And so look at this, as I go, this is just a character map. Look what, and we're not even saying, look, this just goes on and on. It's just this huge project. I don't know how this, if this person has a job, but what I especially like are things like the, well, not so much that actually, whoops. Oh no. Am I going to be able to go? Okay, I am going to be able to. Okay, so I'm going to go to the map, the main map. This is the part that I like the most. And what I loved about this was that you can show all kinds of things, but in particular, you can do, like, say, places. We could talk about places. We could look at places, but we can do the path. So in The Hobbit, here's the Path of Thorin and Company, which is really neat. In The Lord of the Rings, you can see here are the travels of Gandalf the Grey and then Gandalf the White. And then you can add on top of it the travels of, say, Pippin and Merry, and you can see they overlap sometimes, but quite different other times. And so you can just keep playing with this map, learning different things. The timelines are a bit complex, and there's all these warnings here, and I never understood that, but it could be because I'm using Firefox and it's a bit old-fashioned. But if you actually go to the website and you take a look at the warnings, or if you take a look at the timeline, it can actually make this map kind of move in a sense, so that it moves around to different places. So I thought this was really quite a good project, but we were supposed to show, like, not just the cool tool, but something that happens like with it, what you do. And so Emil Johansson also has, like, he also creates some ideas and does some writing about it. And so this is him writing it up. So, for example, in this piece, he argues Tolkien might have subconsciously given hobbits even-numbered birth years because he loved them. Okay, well, that's kind of cute. But what happens is there's a non-zero probability chance that the digits have been skewed, and he goes on to give a reason why that might be. Behind this website, and there's a whole bunch of pieces like that. There's like a whole bunch of the importance of hobbits to the rest of Middle-earth, so outside of this one hero thing, and character dialogue, like where he makes all these kind of interesting links, but somebody talked about that already. Like, his data behind this must be just kind of amazing, like how much work that he did to put all of this together, like time and distance, 6 degrees of Sauron. I just found that now, and I probably shouldn't have pressed it because I don't have time and it's my talk, and I shouldn't be doing things in the middle of my talk. But anyway, this is a great site. The limitations are clearly it's not working very well with Firefox, but that's my fault. I tried putting things into PowerPoint, and then I forgot the thumb drive. Okay, bye-bye. Hi. My name is Legolas. Well, it's actually Nicolas, but you can call me Legolas for today's talk because the Lord of the Rings was just so important to me growing up, and so important to my family. And we went to New Zealand and we saw all the things, and we watched the films every year, and I read the books every summer. And I just really love all of those things. And so I heard from our teacher Brenton that there was a person named James Tauber, and he was working on the Digital Tolkien Project, which is doing super cool things. And I spent way too much time on this website. Some of them aren't really important yet, but it has things like the Rings of Power data, where people just sat there and they took statistics as they were watching or something like that. But I didn't really know kind of what the purpose of those things were. What was helpful to me, well, the Tolkien glossary was kind of cool. What was helpful for me was in the search. I think some of you know I'm a music student, and I play the Flemish winged horn as my chief instrument, and so I wanted to know about things in the books. And so I was able to, with horn, I was able to see the links and start to look at the different places. Now, the text isn't online because they're not allowed to have the text online. But you can see the Lord of the Rings. There's 86 references to horns, and in the 6 books, I know you call it a trilogy, but it's really 6 books, the 6 books of the Lord of the Rings. And what it does is it gives me the chapter number, or the book number, and then the chapter number, and then the paragraph number, so I can look those things up for myself. What's really amazing, though, is that it's got things that nobody else has, like the Silmarillion. It's got the, shows the horn in the Valaquenta as part of the creation, the creation of the world, and the spreading of Arda and all those sorts of things. But it also has some of the history of Middle-earth, like the unfinished tales are referenced here as well. And I have all of those books books up here on my shelf. And so when I want to look up something, I can go and do that. James Tauber does some of his own work too, but it's all published like in, those like peer-reviewed journals and things like that. And so instead, what I thought was interesting was he makes these little delvings. So he does little bits of research and he makes tiny little quick thoughts so that you can understand really quickly. The shortest paragraph in the Silmarillion, the Lord of the Rings, and things like that. I guess that's kind of funny. But dark versus light. So for every 10,000 tokens, which is like it's like word, but not word, individual word. Anyway, every 10,000, there's this many references to darkness and light. And I was really kind of surprised. I thought there'd be much more about darkness. And so I really like that. The longest paragraphs and the shortest paragraphs, and you can kind of follow those up as well. Almost always the films call the Black Gates rather than Morannon, and notice that there's actually much more references to that, and you can see the foreshadowing of the Black Gate early and then increasing. Precious, which is an important word for Gollum, and so you can see how this shows in the 6 books of the Lord of the Rings. We can really see that book 4 is about Gollum, or like half about Gollum, and so on. And there's just all the, oh, sorry, I was only supposed to do 3 minutes. So I have to stop. Okay, I can finish my sentence. Okay, one of the things I liked was this evil versus good. Now, he writes about these things later, but you can see how the emphasis changes and the different ways of the books. The children's book, good is emphasized over evil. In the Lord of the Rings, there's more of the battle. And then in the Silmarillion, it's about dealing with evil as a thing. And sorry, I ran out of time, but I love this site, so thanks to James Tauber for making it. Hey, Tobias here. It's funny that, Aragorn, who just went, not Aragorn, Legolas, who just went, talked about James Tauber's work, because I also found his work as part of the Perseus Digital Library. Now, that's been like 50 years, and so he hasn't been around that long. But what this does is, like, it takes old books like Greek and Roman material, Arabic and German, and some old books, and then you can search them, and you can do this kinds of word searches you've seen already in all of those things. And if you take a look, they've got 70 million words in the classical language, and each one of those was individually tagged and then described. And so I opened up Euthyphro, which we're going through in philosophy, one of Plato's dialogues. And it has a okay setup once you find it. It took a little bit to find exactly what I was looking for. And so, and then it shows the Greek, and I can put the English next to it. And then there's also some references and some tools that you can open up, or you can keep them hidden. Now, it could be because I don't know it very well, but like here it says, like, yo, like how now, brown cow, it says here, yo, Socrates, what's happening? What's this like all about? But when you click on a word, like it opens up a new screen for you to get like what the word does in the sentence and some of the translations and things. And so I found that a bit difficult actually to deal with, and compared, especially, I've got this other application, Bible software. And so here's the book of John. And when it says, so in the beginning was the word, and I can do the parallel, it's just the same. But here I can just like click on a word and it shows arche is the beginning, and so on. Both of them are limited. Like I really want to know like all the words that are connected with this, and I would like better dictionaries, and this costs money to set up. Whereas one advantage of the library, is that it is all entirely free. So all of that comes free. And I think that's really cool that these guys have spent their life doing this. What I haven't been able to find is who uses this online in papers and things. And it turns out it's mostly teachers. And I guess that's good. Like, teachers are doing this. And one thing that I do like, just as somebody interested in computers, is that they'll show us the code. So they're not hiding anything. The code tree is there. And so then it also shows how all the words have been tagged. And I just think of it like word by word, millions and millions of words done by nerds over the last 50 or 60 years. I guess since the, I don't know, late 70s, since Perseus came out. And I just think that's very cool. So thanks to Perseus and Tufts University for hosting it, and people like James Tauber for really making it work. And also to applications like these that allow on my phone to kind of follow along reading passages and things like that. Love that. Thanks. Any questions?